I never thought I'd find myself in this situation, a husband betrayed by his wife. My name is Jake, and I was married to Melissa for 6 years. We lived in a charming suburban neighborhood. Our house was our home, and I thought we had a good life together. But behind the white picket fence, things were starting to unravel. It all began with little things. I noticed Melissa was spending more time on her phone, whispering when she thought I wasn't listening. Her late nights at work became more frequent, and she sometimes forgot to mention that she wouldn't be home for dinner. I chalked it up to stress from her job at the marketing agency, where she worked long hours. Then there was the new neighbor, Tom. He was a couple of years younger than us, and had that laid-back charm that could easily draw anyone in. I didn't think much of it at first. After all, we were friendly neighbors. One evening, I came home early from work, excited to surprise Melissa with her favorite takeout. I opened the front door and was greeted by an unusual silence. I called out for her, expecting her to come. Rushing down the stairs, but there was no response. As I walked into the living room, I noticed her phone on the coffee table. The screen lit up, revealing a message that made my heart drop. It was from Tom, asking if she was ready for their special night. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My first instinct was to deny it, to rationalize that maybe it was all some misunderstanding. But the evidence was there, clear as day. My mind raced as I pieced together the signs I had ignored all along. I picked up her phone and found more messages, explicit ones that left no room for doubt. My hands shook as I read each one, my heart pounding with betrayal. The betrayal burned within me, fueling a mix of anger and heartbreak. I could hear the front door creak ever so slightly, and I turned to find Melissa standing there, her eyes wide with shock. The color drained from her face when she saw me holding her phone. "What's going on, Jake?" she asked, her voice trembling. I couldn't find the words. I felt rage bubbling up, and all I could manage was to throw her phone at her. "You tell me, what's this?" I shouted, pointing at the screen. Her response was a flurry of excuses. She claimed it was just flirtation, that it didn't mean anything. "I needed excitement, Jake. You've been so distant lately," she said, her tone shifting from panic to defensive. I listened as she spun her web of lies, trying to twist the narrative to make herself the victim. I remembered how supportive I had been, how I'd always encouraged her career. My heart sank further. This wasn't the woman I married. She used to be compassionate and loving, but now she was just looking for a way out. As I stared into her eyes, searching for any hint of remorse, all I saw was annoyance. "I can't believe you accuse me of cheating," she said with a dismissive wave of her hand, her tone dripping with sarcasm. I couldn't believe the audacity. In that moment, the anger transformed into overwhelming sadness. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. I had trusted her completely, and now I was left with nothing but a hollow ache in my chest. I wanted to scream, to cry, to make her feel the hurt she had caused me. Instead, I found myself speechless, processing the weight of her betrayal and the potential end of everything I thought we had. As the night wore on, I found myself grappling with the reality of our situation. This wasn't just a bump in the road. It was a full-blown catastrophe. I needed to figure out how to move forward, but first, I had to understand the depths of this betrayal. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a long journey toward revenge and reclaiming my life. The days following the confrontation with Melissa felt surreal. I was stuck in a haze, replaying our argument over and over in my head. The house, once a sanctuary, felt like a prison filled with echoes of our shattered marriage. I didn't want to see her, didn't want to hear her excuses anymore. I retreated into my own space, avoiding any conversation. Melissa tried to reach out, often finding me in the living room staring blankly at the wall. "Jake, I'm sorry, I made a mistake," she pleaded one night, her voice tinged with frustration. I did respond. I just needed space. I could feel her resentment building. She hated being cornered, and that made me angrier. The silence between us was suffocating, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living a nightmare. I had never imagined that the woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, could betray me so casually. I started to think about our life together, the plans we had made, and how easily they seemed to crumble. One afternoon, as I was cleaning out the garage to distract myself, I stumbled upon a box of old memories, pictures, trinkets, letters from our early days. Each item brought back a flood of nostalgia. I remembered the laughter, the love, and the promises we had made. But alongside those memories came a sharp, bitter realization. All it took was one person to throw all that away. Driven by anger and the need to regain control, I decided to take steps that would shake her world up like she had shaken mine. I wanted Melissa to feel the weight of her decisions. Selling the house seemed like a clear way to do that. It was where we had built our life together, and uprooting her would be a powerful statement. I spent the next few days researching the real estate market in our area. I made calls, set up meetings with agents, and quickly realized how easy it was to move forward. The thought of her being forced to find somewhere else to live fueled my determination. I couldn't wait to see the look on her face when I told her. When I finally confronted her about my plans, I made sure to keep my tone calm and composed. "I'm selling the house, Melissa," I stated flatly, watching her expression shift from confusion to realization. "What? You can't be serious," she exclaimed, her voice rising in desperation. "I am serious. You've shown me that I can't trust you and I won't stay in a place filled with those memories," I replied, my heart racing at the prospect of what was to come. "Jake, please, you can't just throw everything away like this," she shouted, her face red with anger. "Everything was thrown away the moment you decided to cheat on me. You have no say in this," I shot back, feeling a mix of satisfaction and guilt. Her reaction was typical of someone caught off guard. She cycled through anger, bargaining, and then finally fell into tears. "What will I do? I didn't mean for it to happen. We can fix this," she pleaded, but I was past the point of fixing things. Over the next few weeks, I worked tirelessly to prepare the house for sale. I enlisted an agent named Karen, a sharp woman who seemed to know the market inside and out. We staged our home, added fresh paint, and worked on curb appeal. I often thought about Melissa during this process, but now my thoughts were fueled by a sense of justice rather than sorrow. Meanwhile, word spread among the neighbors about the impending sale. Some came to express their condolences, but I kept my answers vague, dodging questions about why we were selling. I felt a sick satisfaction in secrecy, knowing that Melissa was on the verge of losing everything. The more I worked, the more I distanced myself from her. I could see the realization dawning on her. She was losing control of the situation, just as I had lost control of my life. She attempted to gain my sympathy, but I remained cold, focused on the end goal. As the for sale sign went up in our front yard, my heart raced with a mix of exhilaration and trepidation. I had made my choice, and now there was no turning back. I kept telling myself that this was what she deserved, a taste of her own medicine. It was time for Melissa to face the consequences of her betrayal, and I was ready for whatever came next. I knew I couldn't keep this up forever, but for now, I was determined to see it through. It felt liberating, empowering even, to take control of my life after so long. With each passing day, I felt stronger, more resolute in my decision to move forward without her. I was ready to reclaim my life, one step at a time. As the days turned into weeks, the reality of selling the house began to sink in for Melissa. The emotional fallout was palpable, and I could see it manifest in her behavior. At first, she attempted to put on a brave face, but it quickly unraveled. The woman who once flaunted confidence now seemed lost, wandering around the house as if searching for something she couldn't quite grasp. One evening, I arrived home after a long day at work, and I found her sitting on the living room floor, surrounded by boxes. She was packing up her belongings, old photos, trinkets, and little reminders of the life we had built together. For a moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy for her. But then I remembered the messages I had found, the betrayal that had ignited this entire situation. Sympathy was a luxury I couldn't afford. "Jake," she said, her voice trembling as she looked up at me, "I know I messed up, but can't we at least talk about this, about what happened?" I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe. "You had your chance, Melissa. You made your choice when you decided to cheat. This is the consequence." She looked utterly defeated, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It was just a mistake." "A mistake?" I echoed, the disbelief almost choking me. "This wasn't a one-time thing. You were texting him, meeting him. You chose to do that instead of being honest with me. Please, I'm begging you. I'll do anything. To fix this, she pleaded, desperation clear in her eyes, but I had already made my decision. You had your chances and you squandered them. I don't want to fix anything, I want out. Suddenly, her demeanor shifted. The tears turned to anger and she leaped to her feet, her hands clenching into fists. You think you can just throw me out like I'm nothing. You think you're the only one who has a say in this. I could see the rage boiling beneath the surface and I stood my ground. You made me feel like nothing, Melissa. You took a match to everything we had and now you're surprised when things start to burn. Her phone buzzed, distracting her momentarily. She glanced at it and I noticed her face pale as she read a new message. I had become so attuned to her reactions that I saw the way she tensed up. I couldn't help but wonder if it was from Tom. What is it? I asked, a hint of curiosity mixed with dread. Nothing, she snapped, immediately shoving the phone into her pocket. Does it have anything to do with him? I pushed, feeling the anger rising in my chest. She opened her mouth to deny it, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she turned and stormed into the kitchen, her back to me. I could hear her breathing heavily and I felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through my veins. I followed her, unable to contain the fury boiling inside. You're still seeing him, aren't you? I'm doing what I need to do for myself, she shot back, her voice sharp. Right. Because that worked out so well for you last time, I replied, my sarcasm drenching the air with bitterness. In that moment, everything seemed to spiral. Melissa began to throw her things into boxes with a frenzy, each item representing the life we had once shared. I felt a mix of satisfaction and guilt, realizing I had pushed her into this chaotic state, but I had to remind myself that she had pushed me to this point first. Then came the real kicker. You think you can just sell the house and leave me homeless? She yelled, her voice cracking. I'll find a way to make this work without you. I couldn't contain my laughter. You think you can just waltz away from this? You'll have to face the consequences of your actions. This is your doing, not mine. At that moment, I felt a sense of clarity. Melissa was spiraling out of control, and I didn't need to play the role of the sympathetic husband anymore. I was no longer the man she could manipulate. I was taking charge of my life, and it felt liberating. The next few days were a whirlwind. The house was buzzing with activity as we prepared for the open house. I watched as Melissa attempted to put on a brave front, interacting with potential buyers while clearly struggling internally. I could see the devastation written across her face, but I also felt a sense of empowerment. I was reclaiming my life, slowly but surely. As we watched the first round of prospective buyers walk through the house, I felt a strange mixture of anxiety and anticipation. Each time someone entered a room, I could see Melissa flinch, as if they were intruding on a space she had lost. But I felt no remorse. Later that evening, as I sat on the back porch, I reflected on everything that had transpired. I realized how far I had come since that fateful night of discovery. I had transformed from a betrayed husband into a man taking control of his destiny. And though the road ahead would be tough, I was ready to face whatever came next. But there was still one question lingering in my mind. How far would I go to ensure that Melissa felt the full weight of her betrayal? The thought sent a shiver down my spine, and I knew I had to tread carefully. I was playing a game now, and I was determined to win. As the open house approached, I could sense the tension in the air. Melissa was a shell of her former self, and while she tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy, it was clear she was struggling. Despite everything, I didn't want to see her completely break down, but I also knew she needed to face the reality of her actions. The house that had once felt like our safe haven was now a battleground, and I was determined to emerge victorious. The day of the open house arrived, and I could feel the electricity in the air. I had arranged for a local real estate agent, Karen, to handle everything while I stayed in the background, letting Melissa take the lead. I figured it would be good for her to experience the consequences of her choices firsthand. After all, her betrayal had shattered our home. As potential buyers filtered through, I watched from a distance, taking in how she interacted with them. She put on her best smile, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. I could see the nervousness in her fidgeting hands, and a part of me felt guilty for relishing in her discomfort. But another part reveled in the sight of her struggling. The woman who had once betrayed me was now facing a harsh reality. After a few hours, the stream of visitors began to dwindle. Melissa came over to where I was standing, her face tense. "Did you see how they looked at the kitchen? They didn't seem impressed at all," she said, her frustration evident. "I'm sure they'll love it just as much as you did when we first moved in," I replied, keeping my tone even, suppressing the satisfaction bubbling beneath the surface. She shot me a glare before turning her attention back to the last few stragglers. I took a moment to collect my thoughts. I had spent so long feeling like a victim, but now I was the one in control. I had a plan, and with each passing moment I felt more determined to execute it. Once the open house wrapped up, Corinne approached me, her expression serious. "You've got some solid interest, Jake. I think we might get an offer soon." "Great," I replied, trying to keep my composure despite the thrill of anticipation. Melissa, overhearing our conversation, immediately perked up. "Really? That's amazing. Maybe it won't take long to sell after all." "Yeah, well, I'm not holding my breath," I said, my eyes narrowing slightly. "I want to make sure we get the right offer, one that reflects how much this place is worth." "Right," she muttered, clearly not understanding that this was also a form of revenge. With the open house behind us, I decided it was time to up the stakes. I had started to gather evidence of her affair, not only for my own peace of mind but also as leverage. I needed to make sure she understood the weight of her betrayal. I started discreetly documenting her late-night outings, tracking her conversations, and even saving some of the messages she had exchanged with Tom. The next few weeks were a blur of showings, negotiations, and a flurry of emotions. I kept my distance from Melissa, focusing on the sale of the house and my plan, but watching her struggle was bittersweet. The woman who had once filled my life with joy was now desperate, grasping at straws to keep any semblance of our life together. One evening, while I was going through the evidence I had gathered, I received a notification on my phone, a message from Tom. My heart raced as I read it. He was reaching out to Melissa, trying to arrange another meeting. This was the opening I had been waiting for. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins as I formulated my next move. This was my chance to turn the tables completely. I would confront both of them, but I wanted to make sure it was on my terms. I needed to expose the truth, not just to Melissa, but to Tom as well. The following day, I set a plan in motion. I sent Melissa a text message asking her to meet me at a local coffee shop. I could see the panic in her response, but I assured her it was important. "We need to talk about us," I wrote, knowing full well that she would be on edge about what I had discovered. When we met at the coffee shop, I arrived early, my heart pounding with anticipation. The air was thick with tension as she walked in, her face pale. She glanced around nervously, clearly unsure of what to expect. "Jake, what's this about?" she asked, her voice shaky. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "I think we both know why we're here," I replied, folding my hands on the table. "You've been seeing Tom, and I have the proof." Her eyes widened in shock, but I could see the gears turning in her brain as she scrambled to come up with an excuse. "You don't understand. I was confused. It didn't mean anything." I cut her off, pulling out my phone. "This is what I found," I said, scrolling through the messages. I handed her the phone, watching as the color drained from her face again. "I can't believe you did this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is what you wanted, right? You wanted excitement. Well, here it is," I replied, feeling a twisted satisfaction in the confrontation. As she continued to read through the messages, the reality of her situation began to sink in. "You can't just use this against me. This isn't fair," she cried, her voice rising in pitch. "Fair? You think this is about fair?" I shot back. "You turned our life into a mess, and now you're trying to play the victim. You've lost the right to that." The coffee shop buzzed around us, but I was only focused on her. I wanted her to feel the weight of her choices, to understand that every action had consequences, and I was ready to ensure she faced them head-on. In that moment, I knew I had crossed a line, but I also felt a surge of power. This was my chance to reclaim my narrative, to rewrite the story of our lives. The house was just the beginning. I would make sure Melissa felt the full brunt of her betrayal in every aspect of her life. and that realization sent a thrill through me. I was ready to follow this path, no matter where it led. The aftermath of our coffee shop confrontation left Melissa visibly shaken. The bravado she had maintained through the weeks of turmoil was gone, replaced by a raw vulnerability that I hadn't seen from her in a long time. As we sat there, the air thick with tension, I could see the realization dawning on her. This was no longer just about a house. It was about her entire life unraveling. "Jake," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "I know I messed up, but can't we just put this behind us? We can still work things out." I shook my head, feeling a mixture of anger and pity. "You don't get to decide that anymore, Melissa. You've taken this too far. You brought Tom into our lives, and now you have to face the consequences." Her eyes darted around the coffee shop, likely searching for sympathy or allies. But this was my moment. This was about reclaiming my power, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate the situation any longer. "I have everything I need to show Tom just who you really are. I think he deserves to know the truth too," I said, my voice steady and cold. She flinched at the mention of his name, and for a brief moment I felt a pang of something, regret, guilt. But I quickly brushed it aside. This wasn't about me anymore. It was about making her understand the depth of her betrayal. "Are you really going to do that?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Do you have to be so cruel, cruel?" I laughed, the bitterness thick in my throat. "You think you're the one who gets to call the shots after what you've done. I'm merely returning the favor." We left the coffee shop in silence. I could feel the weight of my decision pressing down on me, but there was a strange sense of satisfaction coursing through me as well. I had finally taken control of my life, and it felt liberating. Back at home, I decided to act quickly. I pulled out my phone, the messages from Tom still fresh in my mind, and crafted a text to him. "Hey Tom, you need to know something about Melissa. We need to talk, it's important." I hit send, unable to suppress the thrill coursing through me at the thought of him receiving that message. Within minutes, my phone buzzed with a response. "What's going on? Is she okay?" I could feel a grin creeping onto my face. "Let's just say she's not who you think she is. Meet me at the Park Cafe tonight at 7 p.m. After I sent the message, I paced around the house, my heart racing. I was stepping into dangerous territory, but I was ready. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about redemption. I needed to show Melissa that her actions had consequences and that she couldn't walk away unscathed. Later that evening, I found myself seated at the Park Cafe, a quaint little spot just a few blocks from our neighborhood. The ambience was cozy, but my nerves were anything but. I felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety as I watched the clock tick closer to 7 p.m. When Tom finally walked in, he looked around, and I could see the confusion on his face. I gestured for him to join me, and as he approached the table, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to unleash a storm. "Hey man, thanks for coming," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Yeah, I got your message. What's going on? Is Melissa okay?" he asked, his brow furrowing with concern. "Let's cut to the chase," I replied, leaning forward, the intensity of the moment palpable. "I think you deserve to know who you're really dealing with." Tom's expression shifted from confusion to concern, and I could see the gears turning in his head. "What do you mean?" I pulled out my phone and opened the messages I had saved, handing it to him. "Read this, it's from her phone. She's been lying to both of us." As he scrolled through the texts, I watched his face drain of color. It was a powerful moment, the realization dawning on him that the woman he had been seeing was not as innocent as she had led him to believe. "What the hell, Jake?" he exclaimed, looking up at me, his eyes wide with disbelief. "I didn't know. I thought she was happily married." "Clearly she wasn't," I replied, feeling a rush of adrenaline. "You deserve better than this. You need to know who you're getting involved with." His hands trembled slightly as he continued to read through the messages. "I can't believe she would do this," he said, his voice trailing off. "Believe it," I shot back, unable to hide the satisfaction in my tone. "She made her choices, and now she has to face the consequences." As Tom absorbed the information, I saw the anger and hurt wash over him. "I can't believe I fell for her lies. I feel so stupid." "You're not stupid. She's the one who made a fool out of both of us," I replied, my voice firm. "But now you know what kind of person she really is." He looked up at me, his expression conflicted. "What are you planning to do?" I'm selling the house and I'm moving on with my life, I admitted, feeling a sense of finality wash over me. But I want you to know the truth before you get hurt any more then. You already have. Tom nodded slowly, the weight of the situation settling over him. Thanks for telling me. I appreciate it. I guess I need to rethink things with her. I'd advise it, I said, my voice steady. She's not the woman you think she is. As we wrapped up our conversation, I felt a strange sense of closure. I had confronted not only Melissa's betrayal, but also the man she had chosen over me. In doing so, I had taken my power back. I was no longer the victim. I was the one in control. When I returned home that night, I felt lighter. The burden of betrayal had not vanished, but I had finally done something about it. I could see the path ahead clearer now, and I was ready to embrace the future, whatever it held. But I knew that this was just a chapter in the book of my life. There was still one final act to carry out, one that would ensure Melissa understood that actions have consequences. I was ready to finish what I had started. The days following my confrontation with Tom felt surreal. I hadn't expected such a swift reaction from him, but I found a sense of satisfaction in knowing that I had pulled back the curtain on Melissa's deception. I had exposed her lies, and she would no longer be able to manipulate everyone around her without consequence. But my mission wasn't over yet. I still had to deal with Melissa. The thought of seeing her again sent a mix of adrenaline and anxiety coursing through me. I knew that when the dust settled from my conversation with Tom, she would eventually confront me about it. A few days later, I noticed a shift in the atmosphere at home. Melissa was trying to play the role of the damaged, desperate spouse, but it was painfully obvious that she was struggling to hold it together. I had seen her attempt to regain control of the situation through half-hearted apologies and rehearsed speeches about how much she loved me, but I wasn't falling for it. One evening, after a long day of work, I arrived home to find her waiting for me in the living room. She had tears streaming down her face, her makeup smudged. "Jake, I need to talk to you," she said, her voice cracking. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "I think we both know what this is about," I replied, crossing my arms. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," she began, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It was a mistake, and I want to make things right." "Make things right," I laughed, the bitterness spilling out. "How do you plan to do that? By pretending everything is okay after you cheated on me, after you shattered our lives? It was a mistake, Jake." I was lost and I didn't know how to handle things. I thought it was just a fling, she argued, desperation creeping into her tone. "I don't care what you thought. You made a choice," I shot back, my heart racing as I relived the betrayal. "You could have come to me, but instead you chose to betray our marriage. You don't get to rewrite the narrative, Melissa." She fell silent, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for a way out. "Can we at least try to fix this?" "I don't want to lose you," she pleaded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm done pretending. You've pushed me too far. I'm selling the house and moving on," I said, my voice steady and resolute. Her face fell, the anger bubbling beneath the surface. "You're being ridiculous. You can't just throw everything away." "I'm not throwing anything away. You did that when you chose to be with someone else," I replied, feeling a mix of sadness and anger. "You've made your bed and now you have to lie in it." At that moment I could see the realization hitting her. The walls were closing in and she had no way out. "You can't leave me homeless, Jake. I have nowhere to go," she cried, her voice rising in desperation. "Maybe that's what you need to understand the gravity of your actions," I said, my heart heavy with the weight of it all. "You took a gamble with our lives and now you're going to face the consequences." The silence that followed was deafening. Melissa shifted from anger to despair, and for the first time I saw vulnerability in her eyes. But it was too late for sympathy. I had long since crossed that bridge. As the days passed, I focused on finalizing the sale of the house. I began to pack up my belongings, sorting through memories that felt tainted by betrayal. Each box carried a weight of its own, filled with remnants of a life I had once cherished. One night while I was packing, I received a text message from Tom. "I just wanted to thank you for showing me the truth about Melissa. I've ended things with her and moved on." I felt a surge of relief wash over me as I read his message. "You deserve better," I replied, knowing that we were both free from the shadows of her deception. A few days later, the house officially sold. I could hardly believe how quickly everything had happened. The relief was palpable, but I still felt a twinge of sadness as I watched the new owners walk through the door. I had thought of this place as my home for so long, and now it was simply a memory. With the sale finalized, I packed my car and left that chapter of my life behind. As I drove away, I felt a mixture of emotions, grief for what had been lost, but also a powerful sense of liberation. I was free from the chains of betrayal, ready to reclaim my life. In the months that followed, I focused on healing and rediscovering myself. I moved to a new city, far away from the memories tied to Melissa. I surrounded myself with supportive friends, pursued hobbies I had put on hold, and slowly began to rebuild my life. I learned valuable lessons from the experience about trust, resilience, and the importance of valuing myself. I had endured pain, but I had emerged stronger. Looking back, I realized that while betrayal had shattered my world, it had also propelled me to seek happiness in unexpected places. I was no longer the victim of someone else's choices. I had taken control of my narrative, and that made all the difference. I often reflect on the journey I've had, and I hope that anyone who finds themselves in a similar situation knows that it's possible to rise from the ashes. Life is too short to dwell in the shadows of others' betrayals. Embrace the journey, learn from it, and move forward. After all, the best is yet to come.